Hello, everyone.
Hello again. We're on page 420 of In Search of Christian Freedom. This subhead is Catechistical Approach. Ray is analyzing the methods JW.org utilizes to program Jehovah's Witnesses. Ray says, while personal study is often encouraged, that study is carefully programmed. Witnesses are expected to read specific Watchtower publications in preparation for the 5 weekly meetings. Although one of these meetings includes a reading of 1 or more chapters of the Bible, this represents only a minor portion of the total assigned material. By the way, this is often given to children to do at the meetings. Focus is on the organization's own publications rather than the scriptures themselves. The meetings where the assigned material is discussed are themselves also thoroughly programmed, with no open discussion provided for. They are largely question and answer sessions, with the questions already prepared by the organization and the answers set forth in the assigned publication. This is a catechistical approach which does not encourage genuine mental effort or frank discussion, but merely the repeating, even if in one's own words, of the thinking of the headquarters organization. Actually, in almost every meeting I have attended, a large percentage of those participating read their response to the question, word for word, directly from the assigned publication.
Aside from this rigid programming, another reason there is seldom any raising of serious questions is, as the Watchtower and Awake articles quoted point out, that most people find thinking is hard labor. Most are willing for others to do their thinking for them, though, as again those articles observe, they like to believe they are doing their own thinking, and to believe that what they adopt as truth has come through their use of their mental powers. The information contained in the Society's publications is presented with great positiveness, and few feel inclined to question its rightness or put forth the mental effort to test its arguments.
So, while questions are permissible, the questioner is always expected to accept whatever answer is provided from the organization's publications. The individual should allow himself to be readjusted by what the publication says. For one to state that the publication's answer is frankly not satisfying, that the argument does not appear to be sound, that human reasoning and interpretation seem to be superimposed on Scripture, is to lay oneself open to possible labeling as self-willed, lacking in humility, presumptuous. Doubts are deemed a lack of faith, evidence of spiritual weakness, a prideful spirit, a leaning towards apostasy.
True, there is periodic acknowledgments in the publications that the writers are, after all, imperfect men, and that the organization has never claimed to be infallible. In actual practice, it works out quite differently. One finds that this only applies to the past, not to the present. While the organization must recognize that it has changed a considerable number of its past teachings, which make it evident that they were in error, it does not feel moved to modesty for those errors, so as to remind its readers that what it now says may also suffer due to that same imperfection. To the contrary, Jehovah's Witnesses are called on to take whatever is currently taught as if it were infallible. In effect, they are told, you should accept everything published as absolute truth, until such time as we may tell you that it isn't. This is purely and simply mind control. In all this, the Watchtower organization is not engaging in something new or distinct. It is simply following a pattern, one common in the past and in the present.
Now Ray starts another subhead, intellectual intimidation, another method the Watchtower uses to program JWs. To achieve this surrender of one's thought processes, the congregation members are constantly presented with the organization's claims of divine backing and authority of the faithful and discreet slave. As But one example, the June 15, 1964 Watchtower, page 365, stated, quote, "As Jehovah revealed his truths by means of the first century Christian congregation, so he does today by means of the present day Christian congregation. Through this agency, he is having carried out prophesying on an intensified and unparalleled scale. All of this activity is not an accident. Jehovah is the one behind all of it." End of quote.
We understand that God revealed his truths at the time of the first century congregation by divine inspiration, by divine communication and direction to the apostles and others, with the result of inspired speech and writings that are true today as they were 1900 years ago. To say that so he does today by means of the present day Christian congregation is for all practical purposes to claim divine inspiration. Jehovah is made responsible for all of it. And what servant of God would want to resist him? As former traveling overseer Ron Fry observed, quote, "The society doesn't claim to be inspired, but it speaks with the same degree of authority as though it was and is, and they demand that they be taken at face value as though they are inspired, and not even permitting people to question or to have doubts or reservations about anything they teach. Then they beg off from responsibility when something has to be changed or corrected, or some prophecy goes unfulfilled." End of quote.
Ray comments, "In place of inspired information, the publications regularly speak of the organization as uniquely possessing revealed truth. On this, Fry comments, quote, "The use of the term revealed, as opposed to claiming inspiration, is merely a matter of semantics, a distinction that represents no difference, and is only called upon to explain away changes, contradictions, and disappointments. If you take the view that they are merely a group of religious men, sincere, but not especially guided divinely, then their experiences make sense, because it illustrates the human factor, miscalculations and cultishness and so on. But on the other hand, to argue that Jehovah is behind all of this, then it doesn't make sense." That is this phrase, revealed truth. Mm-hmm. Ray goes on to comment, "The concept of revealed truth is employed repeatedly. If it is revealed, who revealed it? The claim is that God did. How then can it be anything other than inspired, infallible? The contrast, however, between the revelation of truth to the apostles and others in the first century, as compared with the history of shifting, fluctuating teachings of the Watchtower organization in modern times, is enormous." Mm. Indeed. So I guess you could call what they're claiming virtual infallibility. For present truths anyway.
Yeah.
They take responsibility to some extent for past mistakes, but don't grant the possibility that what they're teaching now is therefore questionable. Yeah.
It doesn't humble them that they've made mistakes in the past.
Yeah.
They just go on just as belligerently with the new things.
Belligerently, that's a good word for what they do. Spiritual warfare, yeah. Mm-hmm. God has changed is in effect what they're claiming, because the method God used in the past, in both the Old and the New Testaments, was to inspire prophets and apostles, which conferred infallibility upon their statements. Mm-hmm. So God has changed, which is absolutely in contradiction to what the end of the Old Testament itself says in Malachi. Mm-hmm. "I have not changed," Jehovah says.
But this idea of no open discussion as well, even if something sits wrong with you, you don't dare say anything, because you will be labeled weak and self-willed and going ahead of Jehovah, and all these things will be cast at you. So you are programmed. You really are programmed.
Like he says, intellectual intimidation, constantly. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to put on your screen a link to a track we did over a year ago called "By What Authority," where we try to demonstrate from the Gospels that Christ publicly said to his apostles and others that his authority rested upon his demonstration of two divine characteristics, i.e. God's omnipotence by his miracles and God's omniscience by his supernatural knowledge and of prophetic ability. If that's the authority of Christ, and that's what, in effect, God gave him to validate his mission as Messiah and Son of God, then why is God changed on that one as well? So put that one on your screen. By what authority? And next time, they're claimed to be divine prophet.